Okay, next question. Andras asks, could you recommend some books to better understand the political right and the political left? Yes. The book, first of all, you have to start with something, start with the basics. So the book that got appraisal from both the left and the right in best describing things is Thomas Sowell's book, A Conflict of Visions. I mean, seriously, A Conflict of Visions is a work that I simply cannot recommend enough, because he goes way beyond party labels and even way beyond self-labeling, and goes straight into individuals' worldview and narrows it down to constrained vision and unconstrained vision. Really a highly recommended book to understand where leftists and rightists are coming from when they propose policy. It really is a conflict of fundamental ways of looking at the world. Those of the unconstrained vision, now I don't want to lay out all the entire book, but just to get an idea, a flavor of how things are being described in A Conflict of Visions. Those of an unconstrained vision, or leftists, tend to believe that man is perfect and that all ills of the world come from institutions. And if we just get all the right people in all the right institutions, everything would be great and utopia would emerge. On the other hand, those of a more constrained vision, or conservatives, tend to believe that man is fundamentally flawed and human nature is largely immutable. So the question is how to erect institutions that channel human urges towards better results, whilst at the same time preserving as much liberty as possible, and also acknowledging that perfection and perfect societies cannot exist. It really is a fascinating read. Okay, other books that I would recommend. The One-Dimensional Man, Studies in the Ideology of Advanced Industrial Society by Herbert Marcuse. Now, Marcuse is the best-known cultural Marxist, and alongside Saul Alinsky is basically the father of academic leftism as we know it today. This is a very good book to understand how academic leftists, that would be the professors, not the students, the professors that wind up all that hatred in their students. It's a very good book to understand how these people, the academic leftists, the professors, tend to think things, how they look at the world, and why and how they reach the conclusions that they reach to. Also from Herbert Marcuse, I would recommend his essays, particularly the essay Repressive Tolerance, an essay published in 1960, I think 65 or 64, something like that. It's basically the blueprint by which student leftists operate today. It was written 50-something years ago, but it sounds like it was written yesterday. In fact, I would go as far as to say that Repressive Tolerance is a thorough description of both the ideas and the practice of the modern left, written before the modern left even existed, basically. All right. Also on leftism, In Defense of Lost Causes by the Slovenian Marxist Slavoj Žižek. In this book, he argues that the risk of genocide and bloodbath, these risks that totalitarianism can indeed bring, the risk is worth it because the cause of revolutionary authoritarianism is good in and of itself. It's a very horrible read, but the horrifying aspect of the book is not necessarily the book itself. The horrifying part of it is the realization that this is exactly how environmentalists tend to construct thought. It's not just the environmentalists, but in militant eco-Marxists, this train of thought is most obvious. So definitely a must-read if you want to understand particularly the militant part of the left. And even though Slavoj Žižek did not intend this, he basically described environmentalist activists. All right. Some other books. On practical leftism, recommended reading Primetime Propaganda, the true Hollywood story of how the left took over your TV by Ben Shapiro, now out of the Daily Wire. This is basically a book of investigative journalism. He used the fact that he had a Jewish name and a Harvard degree, and the fact that few people knew at the time that he was a conservative, and used these things to go into Hollywood and ask around about how they treat conservatives, why there are little to no conservative values in Hollywood productions, and so on and so forth. It's a very, very good read, and most of the book is simply interviews with leftists explaining to what they believe to be a fellow lefty how and why they do the things they do. Alright, these are on social issues. On economics, Wealth, Poverty and Politics, An International Perspective by Thomas Sowell is an absolute must. It's a very good read of economic history as well as economic reality in present days. It explains why certain areas of the globe developed better and why certain areas developed worse, and it goes way beyond way behind the 20th century, and he basically argues that some places of the globe remain undeveloped today because of geography and and other trends that predate communism by quite a lot, and predate colonialism, and predate many other ills that are routinely used to explain away undevelopment or underdevelopment even to this day. Now, after you read Wealth, Poverty and Politics by Thomas Sowell, I suggest reading after that the book Capital in the 21st Century by the French Marxist Thomas Piketty. Also on economics, Capitalism and Freedom and Free to Choose, both by Dr. Milton Friedman. And while we're at it, I'll also toss in The Road to Serfdom by Friedrich von Hayek, which should be a must-read for everyone, really. However, all of these make sense if you understand economics at a basic level. So if you don't have any idea about economics, then start with Basic Economics by Thomas Sowell before diving into all the others. Thomas Sowell has this gift of making any complex topic and making it palatable without being in the situation that you would have had to read an entire library of books before even understanding what the hell he's talking about. For instance, he prides himself that he writes books about economics without using graphics and very complex numbers that make it difficult for the average person to understand. And so that's why Basic Economics by Thomas Sowell is a go-to book for anyone, both for leftists and for rightists, to at least get a sense on how economics work. And the reason I recommend this to everyone is because I often find myself having read the opposition's best book, but the opposition not even being aware by my sides of the argument's best books. Okay. Other books that I would recommend: Democracy in America by Alexis de Tocqueville, Righteous Indignation, Excuse Me While I Save the World by Andrew Breitbart, Coming Apart, The State of White America by Charles Murray, and finally on practical right-wing politics, By the People, Rebuilding Liberty Without Permission, also by Charles Murray. In this particular book, he makes the case, and this is a very good book for Europeans too. In this book, he makes the case for civil disobedience and encroaching upon the administrative state. I would recommend this book. I recommended it before in other videos. I simply cannot recommend it enough. All right. Before going further, a few more leftist books. Reason and Revolution, Hegel and the Rise of Social Theory, again by Herbert Marcuse. Dialectic of Enlightenment, Philosophical Fragments by Theodor Adorno, also a leading cultural Marxist and member of the Frankfurt School. And let's not forget the classic The Origin of the Family, Private Property and the State by Friedrich Engels, published in 1884, and many portions of it sound like reading Salon.com in 2017, especially the part about the family. This is a good book to have in mind when encountering those people who claim that the modern left has nothing to do with the old left, and so look, we're not commies today, we're progressive. All of that is a lie. On social issues, the destruction of the family and many of the nonsense that's still coming out from the left today were always there since the beginning. It's just that they were at some moments more successfully downplayed. Anyway, I could go on like this quite a bit more, but if you read all of these, you definitely find yourself in a much better position to discuss politics, whether you're on the left or on the right, quite frankly.